Okay.
Welcome everyone from Israel. My name is Jeremy Weiss, and I direct the U.S. desk in the International Relations Division of Yad Vashem. Thank you for joining us for today's lecture. While our museum remains closed, our offices have been open, and we are very busy preparing to get Yad Vashem up and running as soon as possible. In order to better connect with our friends and partners around the world, the U.S. desk has launched a new series of online lectures like the one you're going to hear about right now and attend. Anti-Semitism continues to thrive, and it's only 75 years have passed since the liberation of Auschwitz. Today's lecture will explore a new educational tool developed by Yad Vashem, an online video course that examines and analyzes the history of anti-Semitism, its recent rise, and its current forms. Dafna, Dolinko, and Yossi Kugler are developers and educators in the e-learning department at Yad Vashem International School of Holocaust Studies. Both Yossi and Dafna bring a wealth of knowledge with them to what I'm sure will be a most relevant and important lecture. Thank you, Yossi and Dafna, and please.
Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for being here. As Jeremy said, Dafna and I are here today to present one of Yad Vashem's latest educational projects, a free online video course dealing with the historical development and current-day expressions of antisemitism. Over the past couple of years, it has become increasingly apparent to us at Yad Vashem that there exists a need among educators, students, and the general public to better understand the complicated phenomenon of antisemitism, especially its contemporary forms. It is this realization, together with the recent rise in antisemitism, that led us to develop this educational tool. So I would like to begin by presenting an overview of the course, and later on, Dafna will give you more details on the numbers of learners that have taken the course so far, the different platforms on which it's currently running, and some examples of the feedback it's been receiving. She will also address any questions you might have, which you are welcome to write down in the chat box. But first of all, let's watch together the promo of the course.
What is anti-Semitism?
Anti-Semitism is a riddle. It is hard to explain why a cultural tradition would become so fixated on a particular group of people as a source of its problems.
Embark on a 2,000-year-long journey to explore the history of anti-Semitism. Together with 50 leading scholars and public figures, we will try to understand how anti-Semitism has developed and changed throughout the ages.
What kind of individual, knowingly, deliberately, kills his Savior, murders the Son of God, not a rational human being, but an irrational being, a monster, an agent of Satan?
What role has anti-Semitism played in a range of cultures, societies, and ideologies?
Every single event in history can be that way attributed to the Jews.
How has it been affected by major historical events and movements?
Suddenly the danger came from their being like us.
How have major historical events been affected by anti-Semitism?
The reason that Britain and the Soviet Union had formed an alliance was because of the power of the Jews.
How did it fuel one of the worst atrocities of our times, the Holocaust?
That did not stop the Nazis from continuing their relentless search for some solution to the Jewish problem.
What happened to anti-Semitism after the Holocaust?
Anti-Semitism, I believe, is always part and parcel of far-right ideologies.
How do Israel and Zionism fit into the puzzle of anti-Semitism?
I think there's a temptation for people to think about Israel as the keystone of the system of global imperialism.
Join us in this voyage as we navigate the long and winding path of anti-Semitism from its origins to the present.
So, as can be seen, the course brings together 50 scholars who explore antisemitism from its origins to the present, covering a variety of time periods and cultures. As antisemitism has constantly developed and morphed, it is our belief that in order to fully be able to understand and identify its contemporary forms, a knowledge of this development is necessary. So let's enter the course itself. So the first part of the course deals with anti-Semitism until the Holocaust, and the last 3 lessons, the second part of the course, deal with anti-Semitism in our world today, including topics such as Holocaust denial, anti-Zionism, online hate, Islamism, and more. Altogether, the course consists of 10 hours of video lectures. Of course, we won't be able to go over all the course today, so we thought we would focus on one theme which is discussed by different scholars throughout the course, that of the connection between conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories continue to hold a central place in our world today. One recent and ongoing example of this can clearly be seen with regard to the coronavirus. In the first months of 2020, the spread of the corona pandemic fueled a rise in anti-Semitism, which blamed the pandemic on the Zionists and the Jews through the use of traditional anti-Semitic tropes and conspiracy theories. So far, these accusations appear to be promoted mainly by extreme rightists, Islamists, and to a minor extent by the far left. Of course, conspiracy theories have always held a central place in the history of anti-Semitism, particularly since the first publication of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion in the beginning of the 20th century. This topic takes us to the first short lecture we want to share with you. The lecture is taken from the second week of the course, as you can see here. I'm entering the unit. And is presented by Professor Elisa Ben-Porat and the prominent historian, Professor Yehuda Bauer.
A major legacy of the late 19th century Russian anti-Semitism was the fabricated text known as the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The work originated in circles of the Russian secret police, based on materials borrowed from earlier conspiratorial anti-Jewish writings and theories. Originally published in the early 20th century under the title Antichrist, the Protocols disseminated, eventually becoming one of the most widely distributed anti-Semitic publications of modern times. The conspiratorial content presented in the publication serves to explain its attractiveness to anti-Semitic ideologues, parties, and movements.
So the Tsarist secret police put together this document that basically chronicled the meetings, the alleged meetings that took place over time in Prague at the site of the Jewish cemetery by Jewish elders who came together to discuss ways in which they could rule the world, in which Jews could rule the world. So every single movement in history, every single event in history can be that way attributed to the Jews. The Jews have a scheme, have a ploy to rule over the world, and they, so that the French Revolution, according to these protocols, was, was orchestrated by the Jews. Socialism, invented by the Jews. Capitalism, every single event.
This protocol spread in Central and Western Europe, although very soon, in the early 1920s, the origin of the protocols with the secret police of the Tsarist regime was uncovered and explained. And some of those who had actually believed that the protocols were something real, realized that they had been led astray and then attacked the protocols. But the protocols spread because the anti-Semitic movements, first in Europe and then elsewhere, were looking for some text which they could rely on, which they could spread. Conspiracy theories are always very popular because people can't explain the complicated development of history, so they are looking for some conspiracy that will explain it. And here you had a conspiracy. And it was the idea of the protocols was really a continuation of a very ancient Christian anti-Semitic trope, and that was that there was a Jewish conspiracy in the world to control the world, which was based on Christian anti-Semitism, which charged the Jews for not recognizing the Christian Messiah as God. And in order to defeat that God, they would coalesce in some way. Again, a complete invention, but it was something that could be used as a conspiracy theory to attack the Jews.
The Protocols of the Elders of Zion spread even though they were revealed as a forgery at an early stage. The first non-Russian edition was printed in Germany in 1920, followed by further translations into other languages in Poland, France, and England. It also reached the United States during that same year, where the automaker and leading industrialist Henry Ford published an Americanized version of the text under the title The International Jew. As can be expected, the text also gained prominence among members of the Nazi Party. Leading Nazi figures incorporated it in their ideology as early as the 1920s, as can clearly be seen in Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. Between their rise to power in 1933 and the beginning of the Second World War, the Nazis published at least 23 editions of the Protocols, which were widely distributed.
Okay, so as we have seen, the Protocols and their message had a deep impact on Nazi ideology, and as we will see now in the following lecture by the And as we will see now in the following lecture by the well-known American historian Professor Jeffrey Herf, taken from the third week of the course, these conspiracy theories even helped the Nazis to explain to themselves and to the public the ongoing events of the war, an explanation which had an impact on the murder of the Jews during the Holocaust. So now I will go again to YouTube.
Nazi anti-Semitism was, of course, a form of hatred and a form of disdain and contempt, but it was something else. It was an interpretation of ongoing events. And it was a worldview. And this worldview solved, or presumed to solve, rather, various riddles of world history. So the riddle of 1939, or rather, excuse me, the riddle of 1941 was the following. After Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union, the Prime Minister of Britain, Churchill, announced on the BBC that Britain would aid the Soviet Union. And so for Hitler, the fact that Churchill would aid the Soviet Union was mysterious. Why would this famous colonialist, this man who praised the British Empire, who despised communism, why would Churchill want to aid the Soviet Union in its hour of need? Now, there were perfectly plausible reasons as to why Churchill made that decision, because he regarded the Nazi regime as the primary threat to Britain, and that the only way to win the war was to ally with the Soviet Union, and that would be the commonsensical interpretation of his famous speech of June 1941. But for the Nazis, the fact that the British wanted an alliance with the Soviet Union, and that the Soviet Union wanted an alliance with Britain. Why would the communists want to ally with the imperialists? That made no sense. So none of this made any sense to common sense, but it made perfect sense in the context of a paranoid conspiracy theory that the Jews had established a connection between the Soviet Union and Britain. And Nazi propaganda made this point, Hitler and Goebbels made this point in their speeches and essays, that the reason that Britain and the Soviet Union had formed an alliance was because of the power of the Jews. Now, the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory as an interpretation of the Second World War applied to the United States as well. Why would the United States not adopt the policy of America first? America first. America first. We should not be involved in Europe's problems. It's none of our affair. America first. That's what Charles Lindbergh said, Father Coughlin, the anti-Semites in the United States, the quote, isolationists. This doesn't concern us, what's going on in Europe. America first. And Hitler asked, why would the United States, which has no national interest whatsoever in what happens on the European continent, be interested in intervening in this war? This is a mystery as to why the United States would involve itself in this war. It's none of their business. But now we have an interpretation as to why the United States is intervening in this war. It's because Franklin Roosevelt is the President of the United States, is because Franklin Roosevelt doesn't believe in America first, because he is a traitor to American national interests, and because Franklin Roosevelt has been captured by the power of the Jewish lobby and his Jewish pals from New York City, the center of Jewish power. And that is why, in opposition to the national interests of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt is driving the United States into a war against Nazi Germany. And why Franklin Roosevelt and the United States are forming an alliance with the Soviet Union. So yet again, the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory of the Second World War demonstrates why these mysterious events that otherwise are completely inexplicable to anybody with an ounce of common sense. Why would the United States bother itself with a war in Europe if it wasn't for the power of the Jews in New York, who are sending non-Jewish boys to Europe to lose their limbs and lose their lives so that the Jews can win a war that they will benefit from and become very wealthy as a result of? And that's what the German government told the German people. And they told it to them again and again. And the longer the war went on, the more the war came home in the form of the air war against Hamburg and Dresden and many other cities, when 600,000 German civilians died under the bombs of the British and American air forces, when whole working class districts went up in flames and people in Hamburg jumped into the canals of the city and died in the boiling water in a firestorm. Horrific events. What Joseph Goebbels said, the propaganda minister, was that the Jews have done this to you. It's the Jews who are gaining revenge. You see, we were right. We said they would come and kill us all, and now they're doing it.
Okay. As we have seen before when talking about the corona pandemic, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories continue to play a role in our world today. Let's hear more about this now in the following lecture, taken from the 6th lesson by a British scholar named Dr. David Rich. And again to YouTube.
Conspiracy theories play a central role in extremist politics of all time. And anti-Semitism has a very strong traditional role within conspiracy theories. And this is why repeatedly we see anti-Semitism cropping up in the language, in the discourse of extremist movements of all types, whether they are far right, far left, radical Islamist movements, and even New Age movements. We often find anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. There is a British think tank called Demos, which has done a lot of research on conspiracy theories. They looked at the literature and the arguments of a full range of extremist movements, and they found anti-Semitic conspiracy theories cropping up in all their literature. The idea of Zog, the Zionist occupation government, that there are Zionist or Jewish hidden powers behind our governments, was the most common one they found in the literature of all different extremist movements. And there's reasons for this. Anti-Semitism was the dominant type of conspiracy theory in that conspiracy world, pretty much from the middle of the 19th century to the middle of the 20th century. So any conspiracy theory that came out of that period, or that harks back to that period from today, will inevitably bring anti-Semitism into it. And this has been facilitated to a large extent by the growth of social media on the internet. If you wanted to come across these anti-Semitic ideas 20 years ago, you would have to go and actually find an extremist movement, persuade them to let you into their meetings, and these are not trusting people. get to read their magazines, which would not really look like professional magazines, or send off to their book lists. And then you'd start to see these ideas. 10 years ago, you could find them on the internet on extremist message boards like Stormfront and other far-right groups. But again, it was people talking to like-minded people. It was far-right people gathering together, making networks and connections, but not really reaching out of those boundaries. Nowadays, with social media, these extremist ideas, these conspiracy theories, this anti-Semitism is on all of our phones, in all of our pockets, in our children's bedrooms. And it looks as professional and as believable as something from the BBC or from CNN. All you need is a Facebook page or a Twitter account or an Instagram account, and there it is. So these ideas spread, and what we're hearing from teachers in schools is that increasingly their students are bringing in material that they found on the internet that they do not have the critical powers to assess and to challenge and to debunk. And increasingly teachers are having to argue against conspiracy theories in the classroom. So this is a new problem. We hear a lot about fake news nowadays. People talk about fake news and post-truth politics all the time. Of course, anti-Semitism is the original fake news. Anti-Semitism has always relied on lies and libels and myths about Jews that unscrupulous political and religious leaders have used to mobilize their own supporters or to whip up a mob. George Orwell, one of the great British political writers, wrote a famous essay on anti-Semitism in 1945, where he wrote words to the effects of one of the striking things about anti-Semitism is that you have to be able to believe things that could not possibly be true. So conspiracy theories, anti-Semitism, what is now being called fake news, they all live together in a world, and it's given a new lease of life to some quite nasty anti-Semitic ideas. Holocaust denial, for example, has really failed as a political project. It's something that neo-Nazis tried 20, 25 years ago to use to revive National Socialism. No one bought it. But in the conspiracy world, where you're not supposed to believe any official story about anything, you shouldn't believe anything that any establishment authority tells you, Holocaust denial has a home. And it has a home alongside conspiracy theories about 9/11, or about the 7th of July tube bombings here in Britain, or about the moon landings, or about Princess Diana's death. And all these things just fit into these mixed together. And the old barriers between what is far left and what is far right, what is fascist and what is anti-fascist, get completely blurred and broken down, because you get the same conspiracy theories in all different parts of the political spectrum. And as ever, as I said, when conspiracy theories are the main way of understanding politics and of viewing the world, anti-Semitism will always have not just a place, but a central place.
So I'm sad to say that definitely conspiracy theories to do with the coronavirus are also now becoming part of that. As Yossi mentioned, this very disturbing and very relevant issue of the relationship between anti-Semitism and conspiracy theories is one of many that are explored in the course. Sadly, we don't have the time to go over additional ones right now. We hope some of you may decide to explore these on your own. At this point, I'd like to just give you some additional information on the course itself. You might have noticed that the video lectures you saw are situated on a British digital education platform called FutureLearn. The course began running on this site, you can see it here, in the spring-summer of 2018, and was updated in the beginning of 2020 to include the most recent events and developments. As in other educational platforms, the course structure in FutureLearn is built to allow the presentation not only of video lectures, but also of articles, reading materials, and discussions. So just to get an example of how each unit is built, we can enter the one dealing with the troubling recent rise in anti-Semitism in the United States. You can see here that it includes a video lecture by Professor Alvin Rosenfeld from Indiana University, recommendations for additional reading, and questions for the learners, which they can address in the comments section below, if they're interested in a more active learning experience. Obviously, the comments section allows for interaction between the learners themselves and also allows us as educators to interact with them. This can obviously be a contentious topic, particularly when dealing with the contemporary world. There are, of course, discussion guidelines that the learners are requested to follow, and they agree to a code of conduct prior to beginning the course itself. All in all, until today, we're happy to say that the comments have almost always been to the point and respectful. And it's actually special to see how they allow learners to really form a community surrounding the course content, to have conversations, to share opinions, etc. So following the success of the course on FutureLearn, it was also launched in Hebrew on the Israeli Campus IL website and on the American-based Coursera platform, that you can see here, which is the largest and probably most well-known digital education platform. The course has so far been translated to French and Spanish, and following requests made by various government officials in Germany, we're now working on a German translation. So as of today, taking into account the different platforms, tens of thousands of people from all over the world have joined the course. And when I say all over the world, I really mean all over the world. We've had students from Iran, from Saudi Arabia, obviously more obvious places like the United States, the UK. In FutureLearn alone, learners have posted around 90,000 comments. So following the success, we decided to upload several video lectures from the course to the Yad Vashem YouTube channel. These have reached hundreds of thousands of views within several months. And we're now thinking of ways to have the course reach even more audiences and also ways to adapt it to the needs of specific groups such as teachers, government officials, and so forth. We truly hope that it can be part of a general movement towards a more positive future.
Thank you very much, Yossi. Thank you very much, Dafna.
Thank you.
And thank you for all joining us and hearing this presentation. We hope that you'll join us again. Be well, take care, be strong.